Right. So since there were several disruptions for our earlier session, I will start from the beginning. LKAS 33 earnings per share. This earnings per share EPS is something you are very familiar with, right? So when calculating financial ratios, this is also one another ratio that you are computing, earnings per share. So how have you computed this one? Earnings per share calculate earnings per share. Earnings means what? Net profit or loss divided by what? Number of ordinary shares. And then you can compute the EPS value, right? So this EPS, earnings per share, is something that investors are always looking for when making their investment decisions, right? That is why there is a separate standard addressed on earnings per share specifically. Okay, so here are our learning objectives. So at the end of this session, you should be able to explain basic earnings per share and diluted earnings per share. So what we know up to now, or what we have computed up to now, is most of the time basic earnings per share, right? So this standard direct us not only basic earnings per share, we need to calculate the diluted earnings per share as well. So how to compute these basic earnings per share and diluted earnings per share, we'll discuss, and what are the disclosure requirements of this standard. So those are the things we're supposed to discuss under LKAS 33. Here, what do you mean by earnings per share? Is a measure of the, right? Is a measure of the amount of profits earned by a company for each ordinary share. Earnings per share, right? So we should have a clear understanding of what do we mean by earnings. Earnings means what? Amounts of profits, right? Amounts of profits that we have earned, that the company has earned. Shares, we know there are mainly two types of shares. There are ordinary shares as well as there are preference shares. But here we need to specifically consider what? Ordinary shares, right? The objective of this standards is to what? To achieve consistency in the calculation of EPS so as to improve performance comparisons between different entities and the same entity over time. Right? Consistency. I told you EPS is something that investors are always looking for. Right? When making investment decisions, they always look what is the EPS value of this company, how it has been over the past few years, how it has been in the similar kind of companies. අපේ company past years වල EPS කොහොමද තිබ්බේ? මේ වගේම nature එකක් තියෙන අනිත් company EPS තත්ත්වය කොහොමද? ඔය කියන information හැමතිස්සෙම investor කෙනෙක් විදියට එයාලා බලනවා when making their investment decisions. Therefore, when it comes to presentation, there should be a consistency. මම EPS කැල් කරන විදිය, මම EPS සම්බන්ධයෙන් disclose කරන ඒවා අනිත් කම්පැනිය EPS සම්බන්ධයෙන් disclose කරන යාලා කැල් කරන විදියට මොකක් වෙන්න ඕනද? Consistent වෙන්න ඕන. When it is consistent only, it is easier for our investors to make comparisons. Right? මම EPS එක විදියට කැල් කරලා අනිත් කම්පැනිය මම වගේම අනිත් කම්පැනිය වෙන විදියට කැල් කරනවා නම් එතන කම්පැරිසන් එකක් කරන්න අමාරුයි. ඒක නිසා ඉන්වෙස්ටර්ස්ලා හැමතිස්සෙම මේ EPS කියන එක බලනවා. එහෙනම් එයාලට වඩාත් හොඳ ඩිසිෂන් ගන්න නම් EPS කියන එක හැම කම්පැනියෙම නැතනම් අපේ කම්පැනි පහුගිය අවුරුදුත් එක්ක consistently අපි මොකක් හරි methodology එකකට කැල් කරලා තියෙන්න ඕන. Right? When there is that consistent only, then we will able to compare and that can be facilitated in making better decisions, right? So that is the objective, to ensure the consistency in the calculation of EPS, right? Then the scope. So what companies actually do need to calculate this EPS and disclose according as per LKAS 33. But it says companies whose ordinary shares are traded in public market. අනිත් companies වලටත් පුළුවන්. හැබැයි මෙන්න මේ කියන companies, right? These companies especially need to apply LKS 33. Right? LKS 33 වල දීලා තියෙන guideline අනුව basic earnings per share, diluted earnings per share calc කරලා ඒව disclose කරන්න ඕන if it is a public traded, public listed company. PLC කියලා කියන්නේ the Colombo Stock Exchange එකේ listed වෙලා තියෙන companies. එයාලා අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම මේ standard එක apply කරගන්න ඕන. Right? Companies whose ordinary shares are traded in the public market. PLC companies ටික. Listed companies ටික. And companies which are in the process of listing. තාම listed company එකක් විදියට CSE එකේ appear වෙන්නේ නැහැ. But they are in the process of listing. Right? Listing process එකේ ඉන්නවා. Then such companies also need to adhere with the requirements of LKS 33. එතකොට private limited companies වලට ඒක යාලට optional. යාලට කැමති නම් basic EPS, diluted EPS calc කරලා disclose කරන්න පුළුවන්. But for PLCs and the companies which are in the process of listing, it is mandatory requirement. Right? Okay. Basic earnings per share. This is the formula we are using to calculate basic earnings per share. Basic earnings per share is calculated by dividing the net profit or loss for the period attributable to ordinary shareholders by the weighted average number of ordinary shares during the period. Right. So here, what is in our numerator? Net profit or loss attributable to ordinary shareholders. Right? Net profit or loss attributable to ordinary shareholders. So how can we take this figure? How can we take this figure? How? Net profit or loss attributable to ordinary shareholders. Net profit or loss. Right? Net profit or loss figures we can have from where? Net profit නැත්නම් loss එක පෙන්නන්නේ කොතනද? අපේ P&L එකේ bottom line figure එක. Net profit or loss. Attributable to ordinary shareholders. හිතන්න අපි ගාව preference shares තිබ්බොතින් under equity, what will happen? We may need to pay what? Dividends. Preference dividends. That is something, right, not attributable to ordinary shareholders. Preference dividends ගෙවනව නම් ඒක මොකද්ද? Ordinary shareholders ලට අයිති දෙයක් නෙවෙයි. ඒක preference shareholders ලට අයිති දෙයක්. එහෙනම් ඒක මොකක් වෙන්න ඕනද? That particular figure we need to deduct from here. If we have pay any preference dividends. Right? So this is what we called net profit or loss attributable to ordinary shareholders. Right? Dividends paid, where it appears. අපි ගෙවපු dividends කොතනද appear වෙන්නේ? Is it coming under our P&L? අපේ P&L එකේ මෙයාව පෙන්නනවද dividends? No. Where this appears? Dividends කොතනද පෙන්නන්නේ? In the statement of changes in equity. හිමිකම් වෙනස් වීමේ ප්‍රකාශනයේදී තමයි ඔය ගෙවපු dividends අපි අඩු කරලා පෙන්නන්නේ. Right? ඒක එතකොට P&L එකේ appear වෙන්නේ නැහැ. P&L එකේ පෙන්නන්නේ නැහැ කියන්නේ net profit calc කරද්දී අපි ගෙවපු dividends ඔතන consider කරලා නැහැ. So therefore separately we need to deduct if we have paid any preference dividends. So then that is what we know by the net profit or loss attributable to ordinary shareholders. Hope it is clear. And what is in our denominator? Weighted average number of ordinary shares outstanding during the period. Weighted average number of ordinary shares outstanding during the period. For an example, right, at the beginning of the year, we had 1,000 shares, assume as such. And at the end of the year also, we have 1,000 shares. At any given time period during the year, we have 1,000 ordinary shares. Then no issue, we can take that 1,000 shares directly here. Right? We do not want to calculate any weighted average. So that is the number of ordinary shares outstanding during the period. But this number of ordinary shares outstanding during the period can be changed. කම්පැනියේ තියෙන shares ගාන අවුරුද්ද ඇතුළත වෙනස් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. කොහොමද වෙනස් වෙන්න පුළුවන්? Due to what reasons? මම කලින් කිව්වේ මොකද? අවුරුද්ද මුලත් තිබ්බේ 1000යි, අවුරුද්ද අගත් shares 1000යි, අවුරුද්ද මැදත් 1000යි. අපි ඕන මාසයක ගත්තොත් shares 1000ම තමයි. එහෙනම් කිසි ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ. කෙලින්ම weighted average number of ordinary shares outstanding during the period in that, as per that example, is 1000. But that figure can be changed due to what? What reasons lead to change this number of ordinary shares of the business? Ordinary shares ගාන ව්‍යාපාරයක තියෙන සාමාන්‍ය කොටස් ගාන වෙනස් වෙන්න පුළුවන් හේතු මොනවද? What are the reasons? What? If there is a new share issue, right? If there is a new share issue, what will happen? අවුරුද්දේ මුල 1000යි තිබ්බේ ජුනි මාසේ වගේ තව 500ක shares issue කරනවා. New share issue එකක් කරනවා. Then at the end of the year it is 1500. Then during the period number of shares has been changed. Then we need to calculate a weighted average number of ordinary shares. එතකොට තමයි weighted average figure එකක් calculate කරන්න වෙන්නේ. තව හේතු මොනවද? අලුතෙන් share issue එකක් කරාම number of shares ගන්න වෙනස් වෙනවා. තව you know these things. Right? Advanced financial accounting වල කතා කරලා ඇති. මොනවද තමයි? When there is a bonus issue. Right? When there is a bonus issue. What do you mean by a bonus issue? Bonus issue එකක් කරද්දි මොකද්ද වෙන්නේ? මංගාව රුපියල් 10000ක් වටින shares 1000ක් තිබ්බනම් bonus issue එකේදී මොකද්ද වෙන්නේ? අර 10000 කියන figure එක shares වල වටිනාකම වෙනස් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. 10000ම තමයි. වෙන එකම දේ මොකද්ද? As a result of the bonus issue, the number of shares I own will be increased. Right? 1000 තිබ්බ එක 1500ක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. හැබැයි අර 10000 කියන එක වෙනස් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. කලින් මට 10000ක් තිබ්බ shares 1000කට bonus issue එක නිසා මං ගාව දැන් shares 1500ක් තියෙනවා. තාමත් value එක 10000ම තමයි. Right? Something like that. Because of that, we may need to calculate a weighted average. Or there can be right issues. හිමිකම් නිකතු කියලා කියන්නේ එතනදී මොකද වෙන්නේ? දැනට ඉන්න owners දැනට ඉන්න shareholders මොකද්ද කරන්නේ? market rate එකට වඩා අඩු rate එකකට shares issue කරනවා. එතකොට අර right share value එකත් වැඩි වෙනවා. අනිත් පැත්තෙන් number of shares ගානත් වැඩි වෙනවා. Because of these reasons, right, the number of ordinary shares outstanding during the period can be changed. If the number of ordinary shares outstanding during the period change, we need to calculate a weighted average figure for that. Right? So this is how we can calculate basic earnings per share. So we will discuss this with some examples as well. Hope you are taking notes, right? Right. So here we have an example or an activity to do. See, profits attributable to ordinary shareholders. Right. Purichala Sugar PLC reported retained profit of 23 million rupees in the year ended 31st December 2016. Right? So their financial year begins from 1st of January 2016 and ends on 31st December 2016. So during this 1 year period, they have earned, right, a profit of 23 million rupees. The company has following shares in issue at that date: 10 million ordinary shares worth of 21 million rupees, 5 million redeemable preference shares, මේ 10 million කියලා කියන්නේ number of shares ගන්න. මෙන්න මෙච්චර shares තියෙනවා. ඒ shares million 10 වටිනාකම තමයි 21 million. 5 million redeemable preference shares worth of 5 million rupees. 4 million irredeemable cumulative preference shares worth of 8 million rupees. Fixed dividends are paid on the preference shares at a rate of 2% of carrying value for the redeemable shares and 4.5% of carrying amount for the irredeemable shares. Further, they say there have been no issues of shares during the year. So what we need to do, we need to calculate the basic earnings per share, right? We need to calculate the basic earnings per share. So I will do it here. Basic earnings per share. Basic EPS. What is the formula we need to use? අපි කලින් කතා කරා මොකද්ද? Net profit or loss attributable to ordinary shareholders divided by weighted average number of ordinary shares outstanding during the period, right? This is the formula that we need to use to calculate basic earnings per share, right? They say there have been no issue of shares during the year, right? No issue of shares during the year. අලුතෙන් කොටස් නිකුත් කරලා නැහැ. ඒ කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? අවුරුද්ද ආරම්භයේ තිබ්බ number of ordinary shares ගාන අවුරුද්ද ඇතුළත වෙනස් වෙලා නැහැ. Therefore, what is the value we should take here as our denominator? What is the value here we need to take? මෙතෙන්ට එන්න ඕන value එක කීයද එහෙනම්? shares ගාන වෙනස් වෙලා නැහැ. එහෙනම් එකම shares ගාන තමයි අවුරුද්ද පුරාවටම තිබිලා තියෙන්නේ. The same number of shares were there, right, during the year. So what should be the figure here? Figure that we need to consider here. කීයද? No issue of shares during the year. In a number of ordinary shares ගාන වෙනස් වෙලා නැහැ. How many ordinary shares we had? Or we have? How many ordinary shares were there? There were 10 million ordinary shares. So this figure has not been changed, mean we can directly take it here. 10 million. Right? Then net profit or loss attributable to ordinary shareholders. How to take this one? Net profit or loss minus preference dividends. What is the net profit? Net profit is 23 million. Right? Net profit is 23 million. From this, we need to deduct what? Preference dividends. වරණීය කොටස් හිමියන්ට ගෙවපු dividends අඩු කරන්න ඕන. Here, right, we have given two types of preference shares: redeemable preference shares and irredeemable preference shares. මොකද මේ දෙකේ වෙනස? Redeemable, irredeemable. Redeemable කියලා කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? Redeemable preference shares means what? නිදහස් කළ හැකි වරණීය කොටස්. නිදහස් කළ හැකි වරණීය කොටස්. There are 5 million of such shares. Irredeemable means then what? Nidahas kala nohaki varaniya kotas. Irredeemable, right? We cannot redeem. So what is the difference between these two? What is the difference between redeemable preference shares and irredeemable preference shares? If I take this one first, irredeemable preference shares. මෙයා කොතනද ඇපිය වෙන්නේ? අපේ financial statements වල මෙයා කොතනද පෙන්වන්නේ? In our statement of financial position. Balance sheet එකනේ පෙන්වන්නේ. Irredeemable, redeemable කිව්වත්, right? Whether it is redeemable preference shares or whether it is irredeemable preference shares, that is appear in our balance sheet, statement of financial position. If it is irredeemable preference shares, under which, right? Under which element? මොන element එක යටතේද එන්නේ? Balance sheet එකේ නම් අපි elements තුනක් විතරයිනේ අපිට අහුවෙන්නේ. Assets, liabilities and equity. එතකොට irredeemable preference shares කියවොත් මෙයා asset එකක්ද? Liability එකක්ද? එහෙම නැත්නම් equity එකක්ද? Under which we can see irredeemable preference shares. I like if you can talk. Under which? Vishmi, irredeemable preference shares balance sheet එකේ කොතනද පෙන්නන්නේ? Assets යටතේද? Liabilities යටතේද? නැත්නම් equity යටතේද? Vishmi Ratnayaka. Tarindu, any idea? Yeah, right. Irredeemable preference shares. කොතනද ඇපිය වෙන්නේ? It comes under equity, right? It comes under equity. අපි ordinary shares යට අර ලියන්නේ, right? Ordinary shares මෙච්චරයි. No, not liabilities, right? It is coming under equity. We balance sheet එක හදලා ලියනවා නේද? Ordinary shares capital එක මෙච්චරයි, preference share capital එක මෙච්චරයි කියලා. ඒකට preference share capital කියලා යාලා specifically අපි specifically mention වෙන්නේ එතන මොනවද? Irredeemable preference shares. It is coming under equity. Then this one, redeemable preference shares. This is coming under non-current liability. Nah, redeemable preference shares නම් ඒක balance sheet එකේ පෙන්නන්නේ non-current liabilities යටතේ. Irredeemable preference shares නම් ඒක පෙන්නන්නේ balance sheet එකේ equity component එකක් විදිහට. Then what is the difference? එතකොට මොකද වෙන්නේ? Then what happens? Whether it is redeemable or whether it is irredeemable, for preference shareholders, we need to pay what? For preference shareholders, we need to pay what? We need to pay dividends. We need to pay dividends. Redeemable උනත්, irredeemable උනත්, preference shareholders ලා අපි මොකක් ගෙවන්න ඕනද? Dividends ගෙවන්න ඕන. එහෙම dividends ගෙවද්දි හිතන්න මෙන්න මෙයාලට ගෙවන dividends කියලා. Dividends that we paid for irredeemable preference shareholders. එහෙනම් මෙයාලට ගෙවන dividends කොතනද appear වෙන්නේ? Irredeemable preference shares is a equity component. එහෙනම් මෙයාලට ගෙවන dividends නිදහස් කළ නොහැකි වරණීය කොටස් හිමියන්ට ගෙවන ලාභාංශ කොතනද appear වෙන්නේ? It is in our statement of changes in equity. හිමිකම් වෙනස් වීමේ ප්‍රකාශනය. Right? මෙයාලට ගෙවන ඒවා. The dividends, preference dividends we paid for redeemable preference shareholders. Where does it appears? එයාලා කොතනද appear වෙන්නේ? එයාලා අපි statement of changes in equity වලට ගෙනියන්නේ නැහැ. මේක equity component එකක් නෙවෙයි, redeemable preference share. It is a non-current liability. Non-current liability වල තියෙන අනිත් ඒවා මොනවද? Loans. Loans වලට ගෙවන interest එක කොහෙද appear වෙන්නේ? P&L වල. තව මොනවද දෙන්නේ non-current liabilities වල? Debentures. Debentures වලට ගෙවන interest එක කොහෙද appear වෙන්නේ? P&L එකේ. Like that way, right? The dividends we paid for redeemable preference shareholders should also appear in our P&L under finance cost. Clear? I hope it is clear for you. Redeemable preference shares and irredeemable preference shares. Now, right, back to here, basic EPS. So here we need to deduct what? From the net profit or loss for the period, we need to deduct what? Preference dividends. I mean preference dividends අපි අඩු කරන්නේ මම හේතුව කිව්වා මොකද්ද net profit or loss එක කැල් කරද්දි preference dividends අඩු වෙලා නැහැ ඇයි අඩු වෙලා නැත්තේ එයා අඩු වෙන්නේ කොතනින්ද හිමිකම් වෙනස් වීමේ ප්‍රකාශනයේදී එතකොට ඒක මෙතනදි තාම අඩු වෙලා නැහැ now what is the amount we need to deduct here then you know the two figures right first we calculate the two figures here for redeemable preference shares we need to pay dividends at 2%. For irredeemable preference shares, we need to pay, right, at 4.5%. Now calculate and tell me what are the dividend amounts that we need to pay out of these two. සියයට දෙකයි කියලා කියන්නේ කීයද? මෙතන අපිට ගෙවන්න වෙනවා ලක්ෂයක්. මෙතන out of 8 million we need to pay 4.5%. Right? 360,000. Now tell me what is the figure I should consider here. Redeemable preference shareholders අපි dividends ගෙවලා තියෙනවා ලක්ෂයක්. Irredeemable preference shareholders අපි dividends ගෙවලා තියෙනවා 3,60,000. So now what is the amount that I need to deduct from our net profit or loss to get the net profit or loss attributable to ordinary shareholders? මට මෙතන උඩට ඕන numerator එක විදියට ඕනේ මොකද්ද? Net profit or loss attributable to ordinary shareholders. How can we take that? From the net profit or loss figure, we need to deduct the preference dividends. So now my question is, what is the amount that I need to deduct from here? Is it 100,000 or is it 360,000 or is it 460,000? I'm waiting for your answer. ඔතන කීයද අඩු වෙන්න ඕන? ලක්ෂයද 3,60,000ද එහෙමත් නැත්නම් 4,60,000ද? What is the amount that we need to deduct? 460,000 කියලා කියනවා එක්කෙනෙක් 360,000 කියලා කියනවා දෙන්නෙක්. What? Another one saying it is 360,000. Yes, it is what? It should be 360,000. මෙන්න මේ 3,60,000 තමයි මෙතන අඩු වෙන්න ඕන. Right? Why? මේ ලක්ෂය, right? This dividend amount, the 100,000 dividend appears where? ලක්ෂයක් කියලා උත්තරයක් දීලා තියෙනවානේ. මේ ලක්ෂය අපි ගෙවපු dividends කොතනද පෙන්නලා තියෙන්නේ? මෙයා අපේ P&L එකේ finance cost එකක් විදිහට පෙන්නලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒ කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? මේ sorry. Right? ඒ කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? මෙන්න මේ කියන net profit එක කැල් කරද්දී දැනටමත් මේ ලක්ෂය මොකක් වෙලාද? It has been already deducted. Right? It has been already deducted when we are calculating our net profit. Redeemable preference shareholders ට ගෙවපු dividends අපි P&L එකට අරන් ගිහලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒ කියන්නේ මෙන්න මේ ලක්ෂය it is under our finance cost. So when calculating net profit, we deduct this amount as well. So this 23 million is what then? After deducting this 100,000. Therefore, again, we do not need to deduct it here. මේක දැනටමත් අඩු වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒක නිසා ආයෙ අඩු කරන්න යන්න ඕනේ නැහැ. But what about this 360,000? This is in where? This is in our statement of changes in equity. මෙහා තියෙන්නේ statement of changes in equity. එහෙනම් මොකද්ද වෙන්නේ? net profit එක කැල් කරද්දී මෙයා තාම අඩු වෙලා නැහැ. මෙයා ordinary shareholdersට අයිති දෙයක්වත් නෙවෙයි. Therefore, that 360,000 only we need to deduct from here. Hope it is clear. Right? So now simplify this one and tell me the answer. What is the basic EPS value? From 23 million, we need to deduct 360,000. That one we need to divide by 10 million. Yes. Right? Not 2,264. 2,264 maybe, right? Yes, that is 2.264. Basic earnings per share. We need to mention the currency as well. Rupees. 2.26. Right. 2.26. I have rounded it off. 226 cents. Right? 2.26 rupees. That is how we can calculate basic earnings per share. Hope it is clear for you. This is the new part you came across, redeemable and irredeemable preference shares. So can we move forward? So you better take notes. If I'm upload करने के मैं figures in नेती वे. Okay, so we'll move ahead. Right. Another example. Example number 2. Ratnayaka Imports PLC has a what do you mean by PAT? Profit after tax, right? Ratnayaka Imports PLC has a profit after tax of 200 million rupees. The company had 120 million ordinary shares in issue at 1st January 2020 and issued a further 30 million shares on 1st June 2020 at the full market price for cash. What we need to do, we need to calculate the basic earnings per share for the year ended 31st December 2020. Right? Here what has happened? At the beginning of the year, we had this much of ordinary shares. 120 million ordinary shares were there at 1st of January 2020, at the beginning of the financial year. What happened during the mid of the year? We have issued further 30 million shares, right? On 1st of June 2020. On 1st of June, we have issued further 30 million shares at the full market price for each. Now, what has happened? There is a change in the number of shares during the period. Therefore, we need to calculate what? We need to specially calculate the weighted average figure, right? We need to calculate basic earnings per share. You know the formula. Net profit or loss. Net profit or loss attributable to ordinary shareholders divided by weighted average number of ordinary shares outstanding during the period. So in your exams also, right, this is something important. It is, I recommend you to write the formula. Right? So what we experience is most of you are getting very close to the cutoff mark and ended up failing the exam. Cutoff mark එක ළඟින්ම ලකුණු ගන්නවා 27න් 28න් ඇවිල්ලා නවතිනවා. ලකුණු දෙන්න බැලුවට ලකුණු දෙන්න තැනක් නැහැ. Right? Marking scheme එකේ මේ formula එක ලියනවට original marking scheme එකේ ලකුණු නැති වෙන්න පුළුවන්. But if there were such situations where you getting closer and then breaks, cutoff market ළඟින්ම ඇවිල්ලා break කරති, then for these points we can give you 1 to 2 marks, right? Therefore I always recommend you to have to write these formulas and all. Okay, here, do we have any preference shares as per this sum? අපි ගාව preference shares තියෙනවද? අපි preference dividends ගෙවලා තියෙනවද? Right? No information has been provided on that. Therefore, we assume that we do not have any preference shareholders and therefore we do not pay any preference dividends. Therefore, what we can do? Profit after tax කිව්වත් එකයි මෙයාටම තමයි මොකක් කියලා කියන්නේද? The same thing we called net profit. මෙයාටම තමයි net profit කියලා කියන්නේ. Net profit figure is what then? 200 million. Since there are no any preference dividends, this is what then? Net profit or loss attributable to ordinary shareholders. Right. Now the issue with this. What is the figure we need to consider here? At the beginning we had what? How many shares? 120 million shares. Right? 120 million shares. And on 1st of June 2020, what have we done? The company has issued further 30 million shares. It means at the end of the year, how many shares do the company have? Does the company have? 150 million shares. Right? So this is at the beginning. This is, right, the share issue. This number of shares has been issued during the mid of the year, and this is at the end. At the end of the year, there are this much of shares. So what is the figure do we need to consider here? As the denominator, what is the figure we should consider? Is it 120? Is it 30? Or is it 150 or something else? Consider figure. We need to calculate the basic earnings per share. How to calculate? Net profit or loss attributable to ordinary shareholders, we need to divide by weighted average number of ordinary shares outstanding during the period. Now we directly can't take this figure. Why? There is a share issue during the mid of the year. So my question is, what is the figure we should consider then? What? 30 million, right? Okay, I'm receiving some of your responses. 30 million කෙනෙක් කියනවා. 150 million කියලා කියනවා. ඔය millions thousands rupees පාවිච්චි කරද්දි පරිස්සම් වෙන්න. right? අපි උඩට පාවිච්චි කරන currency එකම thousands නම් යටත් thousands වලින්ම තමයි. Otherwise the figure you will get is incorrect. 150 million, 150 million. What about others? 150 million. So most of you saying this 150 million. Okay. So here, obviously we cannot take 120 million. That is wrong. අවුරුද්ද මුල තිබ්බ figure එක අපිට මෙතෙන්ට අරන් ඉන්න බෑ. ඒක වෙනස් වුණා. 30 million, that is also incorrect. That is not the weighted average number of ordinary shares outstanding during the period. This is the right amount of shares we have issued during the period, not something that should comes here. What about 150 million? That is also not the answer, right? That is also should not be the figure that we need to consider here. It is what? Weighted average number of ordinary shares. Weighted average. අපි මෙතන weight කරාද මොකක්වත්? නෑ අපි මේ දෙක එකතු කරලා අන්තිමට අවුරුද්ද අන්තිමට තිබ්බ figure එක කියලා කියන්නේ. Right? Number of ordinary shares at the end of the financial year means not the weighted number of ordinary shares outstanding during the period. That one we need to separately calculate. Weighted average number of ordinary shares outstanding during the period. That one we need to separately calculate. Right? So how to calculate? This 120 million අවුරුද්ද මුල තිබ්බ shares million 120 අපි ගාව මාස කීයක් තියෙනවද? For how many months does this 120 million being with us? අපි ගාව මාස කීයක් තිබ්බද? අවුරුද්දේ මාස 12ම ඔය 120 million අපි ගාව තිබ්බා. Isn't it? This 120 million was there from the beginning with the company. අවුරුද්දේ මුල ඉඳන් මේ 120 million company ගාව තිබ්බා. Then on 1st of June 2020, what has happened? We have issued this much of ordinary shares, 30 million. Then this 30 million is with the company for how many months? අලුතෙන් issue කරපු million 30ක shares company එකව මාස කීයක් තිබ්බද? From 1st of June to 31st December. For how many months? July, August, September, October, November, December 31st. For how many months? Yes, for 7 months. Right? This 30 million shares was with the company for 7 months. In a මාස 12 මාස 7ක් company එකව මේ 30 million shares තිබ්බා. So what is the figure? සුළු කරාට පස්සේ කීය දෙන්නේ? Right? 30 into 7 over 12. 17.5. 17.5. It means what? 137.5. This is in what? This is in millions. මේ million වලින් තියෙන්නේ. අපිට මෙතන numerator එක consider කරලා තියෙන්නේ මොකෙන්ද? rupee value එකෙන්. Right? එහෙනම් කොහොමද? This is the figure. 137.5 million rupees. So this is what the figure that we need to consider here. Right? None of these. අවුරුද්ද මුල තිබ්බ figure එකවත් නෙවෙයි. අපි අලුතෙන් add කරපු shares ගානවත් නෙවෙයි. share issue එක නිසා අපිට අලුතෙන් එකතු වුණු shares ගානත් නෙවෙයි. අවුරුද්ද අග තිබ්බ shares ගානත් නෙවෙයි. Then it should be what? It should be the weighted average number of ordinary shares outstanding during the period. That one we need to separately calculate. How to calculate? I have demonstrated it here. Right? So it should be this figure. 137500000. Right? 137.5 million. Therefore, what should be the basic earnings per share? Basic earnings per share කීයද එහෙනම්? basic earnings per share කීයද? 1.45, right? Rupees 1.45. Always have the currency. Earnings per share. එක ෂෙයා එකකට අපි කියන්නේ එක ෂෙයා එකක ඉන්වෙස්ට් කරොත් මෙන්න මෙච්චර ප්‍රොෆිට් එකක් අපිට ගන්න පුළුවන්. earnings අපිට ගන්න පුළුවන්. Okay, rupees 1.45, correct. So that is how or what we need to do when there is a share issue, or if the number of shares has been changed during the mid of the year. Clear? We'll give 1 to 2 minutes to take down this. මම මේකේ answers වෙනම upload කරන්න මට බැරි වෙයි. ඒක නිසා ඔයාලා මේක note down කරගන්න. Right, so we will move ahead. So far we have discussed on basic earnings per share, and I told you when it comes to earnings per share, there are two types of earnings per share that we need to compute and disclose. One is basic earnings per share, what we have discussed up to now. The other one is what? Diluted earnings per share. So what do you mean by diluted? What do you mean dilute? Dilution, dilute. What do you mean by that? Right. හිතන්න ඔයා තේ එකක් හදනවා. Right? අධික පැණි රහයි. සීනි කොටාක් දාලා හදන්නේ ගොඩාක් පැණි රහයි. ඒ වගේ වෙලාවක මොකද කරන්නේ? තේ එකක් හැදුවා. ඒක කටේ තියන්න බැරි තරමට පැණි රසයි. ඒ වගේ වෙලාවක මොකද කරන්නේ? Right? To get out of that situation, what you need to do? What you may do? You may add more water. තව ඔකට උණු වතුර දාලා මොකක් කරන්න පුළුවන්ද? අර අධික පැණි රස මොකක් කරන්න පුළුවන්ද? අධික පැණි රස වල සැර පාල කරන්න පුළුවන්. Right? Adjustment එකක් කරලා අධික පැණි රසයි කියලා තිබ්බ දේ සැර මොකක් කරාද අපි? බාල කරා. The same thing applies here. Dilute කියන එකේ සිංහල තේරුම මොකද්ද? Right? පියාරු වෙනවා, අඩු වෙනවා, right? Something goes, right? It gives us the idea that the value should goes down. Dilute, right? The value should goes down. So same thing appears here in diluted earnings per share. So we have already calculated EPS called basic earnings per share. If because of certain adjustments we do, if that particular basic earnings per share value can goes down, then that new earnings per share value we identify as diluted earnings per share. අපි කරන adjustments නිසා අපේ basic earnings per share කියලා දැන් අපි ගාව value එකක් තියෙනවනේ. අපි මොකක් හරි adjustments කරොතින් ඔය කරන adjustments නිසා ඔය basic earnings per share එක අඩු වෙන්න හේතු වෙනවා නම්, right? That is what we called the diluted earnings per share. Okay, the simple idea behind diluted earnings per share. Because of the adjustments we do, if our basic earnings per share goes down, that is what we know as diluted earnings per share. Right. So here, in terms of the adjustments, important thing we need to understand is this. This is the adjustments we do. Potential ordinary shares. Potential ordinary shares. What do you mean by this? Potential ordinary shares. Those are not yet ordinary shares, but they have the potential to become ordinary shares. තාමත් ordinary shares නෙවෙයි. තාම සාමාන්‍ය කොටසක් කියලා අපි අඳුන ගන්නෑ. But they have the potential to become so. හැබැයි අනාගතයේදී මොකක් වෙන්න ඉඩ තියෙනවද? ඔය තියෙන දේ ordinary shares විදිහට convert වෙන්න අවස්ථාව තියෙනවා. If it meets certain conditions. Right? Convertible loan stocks, convertible preference shares. So those are some examples for potential ordinary shares. Up to now, as at the date, those are not ordinary shares, but in the future, they can become ordinary shares. These potential ordinary shares can be dilutive or anti-dilutive. Dilutive කියන වචනේ තේරුම දන්නවනේ. Dilutive කියලා කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? අගය පල්ලෙහාට යනවා කියන එක. එහෙනම් anti-dilutive කියන්නේ අගය වැඩි වෙනවා. Right? So potential ordinary shares can be dilutive or anti-dilutive. Dilutive, anti-dilutive අඳුරගන්නේ කොහොමද? As a result of potential ordinary shares. Potential ordinary shares කිව්ව මොනවද? තාමත් ordinary shares නෙවෙයි, හැබැයි අනාගතයේදී ordinary shares වෙන්න පුළුවන් දේවල්. For an example, convertible loan stocks or convertible preference shares. Once these convertible instruments are converted, if it resulted in increase in EPS, where convertible instruments, නැත්නම් potential ordinary shares execute කළොතින්, convert කළොතින්, යාවල ordinary shares කළොතින් අපේ දැන් තියෙන EPS එක වැඩි වෙන්න ඒක හේතු වෙනවද? එහෙනම් ඒක anti-dilutive. Right? Then it is anti-dilutive. Because of these potential ordinary shares, or if we execute these potential ordinary shares, or if the convertible instruments are converted, if it resulted in the decrease of EPS, convertible instruments convert කරොතින් නැත්නම් potential ordinary shares මට්ටමට පත් කරොතින් ඒ හේතුව නිසා අපේ EPS අඩු වෙනවද? එහෙනම් ඒ වගේ ordinary shares අපි අඳුන ගන්නවා dilutive potential ordinary shares. When calculating diluted EPS, we consider only dilutive potential ordinary shares. Right? So with an example, I will discuss how to compute this diluted earnings per share. So for the moment, you need to understand it is an adjustment we made to the original EPS formula. This is the original EPS formula. Profits in basic EPS. Profits divided by number of shares. This is how we have computed EPS. For that, we are making adjustment. Adjustment as a result of what? As a result of potential ordinary shares. Right? Only we are considering potential ordinary shares can be dilutive or anti-dilutive. Here we consider only the dilutive potential ordinary shares when considering the adjustment and computing diluted earnings per share. Right? Example එකක් කතා කරද්දී මේ කියන්නේ මොකක්ද කියලා හොඳට තේරෙවි. Right. So these are some definitions you should know. Right, and this has been tested most of the time, this dilution and anti-dilution. You have asked to define what do you mean by dilution and what do you mean by anti-dilution in your exams. Right? Diluted EPS we have discussed, the adjustment we made. Dilution means what? Dilution, I told you what? Reduction in earnings per share or an increase in loss per share resulting from the assumption that convertible instruments are converted, that options or warrants are exercised, or that ordinary shares are issued on the satisfaction of specified conditions. අර කිව්ව potential ordinary shares විදිහට execute වුණොතින් ඒකේ result එකක් විදිහට අපේ EPS, අපේ earnings per share අඩු වෙනවා නම්, reduction in earnings per share or an increase in loss per share, දෙකම අපිට අවාසියනේ. Right? Increase in loss per share then that is what we called dilution. Right? Simply keep in mind, dilution means what? A reduction in earnings per share or an increase in loss per share. Then anti-dilution means what? The opposite of it. Increase in earnings per share or reduction in loss per share. Right? So these are the most frequently tested definitions in your exams. හැම අවුරුද්දෙම වගේ මේ dilution anti-dilution කතන්දරය අහලා තියෙනවා. Right. Options, warrants and their equivalents and order shares you can read and understand. Right. So here, potential order shares, some examples have been given like convertible loan stock, convertible preference shares, options or warrants, right? Shares that would be issued on the satisfaction of conditions resulting from contractual arrangements such as purchase of a business. So these are some examples for potential ordinary shares. And the next point I have already discussed with you, potential ordinary shares may be dilutive or anti-dilutive. So to make a potential ordinary shares dilutive වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්, anti-dilutive වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. Dilutive potential ordinary shares decrease EPS on conversion. Dilutive වචනෙම තියෙනවනේ, decrease EPS. Anti-dilutive potential ordinary shares increase EPS. And convertible loan stock එකක් කියලා ගන්න. මේ convertible loan stock කියලා කියන්නේ තාම ordinary shares වෙලා නැහැ. හැබැයි අනාගතයේදී මොකක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්ද? මේ loan stock කියලා කියන්නේ දැන් පෙන්නන්නේ non current liabilities වල. අනාගතයේදී මෙයාලා අදාළ conditions satisfy කරොතින් නිශ්චිත කාල සීමාවක් ඉවරනාට පස්සේ මොකක් වෙනවද? මේක non current liability වලින් ගලවලා ordinary share එකක් විදිහට equity component වල අපි අතුන ගන්නවා. එතකොට ඔය conversion එක නිසා, ඔය පරිවර්තනය නිසා අපේ EPS වැඩි වෙනවද අඩු වෙනවද කියලා අපි බලන්න ඕන. අඩු වෙනව නම් ඒක dilutive potential ordinary share එකක්, වැඩි වෙනව නම් ඒක anti dilutive potential ordinary share එකක්. Here this is the most important thing. When calculating diluted earnings per share, right, only dilutive potential ordinary shares are considered. අපි diluted earnings per share cal කරද්දී මෙයාව consider කරන්නේ, we consider only this one, dilutive potential ordinary shares. Right? So now tell me, we have two types of EPSs now. Basic earnings per share is there, diluted earnings per share is there. Always what figure should be higher? හැමතිස්සෙම මොන EPS value එකද වඩා වැඩි අගයක් ගන්න ඕන? What EPS value? Is it basic EPS or is it dilutive EPS? Diluted earnings per share. මොකද්ද? Always our basic earnings per share figure should be higher. හැමතිස්සෙම මෙන්න මෙයා වැඩි. Right? Compared to diluted earnings per share. Right. So here we have an example. Right? This is done for you. Read it out. Abecon Electricals PLC has 20 million 10% convertible loan stock in issue. 20 million 10% convertible loan stock. Under non-current liabilities, there may be a convertible loan stock worth of 20 million. 10% means the interest rate they are paying at the moment. Convertible loan stock එකේ value එක 20 million. එයාලා 10% interest rate එකක්, interest එකක් ගෙවනවා. This is convertible in the future at a rate of 1 share for every 10 rupee loan stock. Rupees 10කට එක share එක ගානේ මේක අනාගතයේදී ordinary shares විදිහට convert වෙනවලු. So it is a potential ordinary share. The company pays corporate income tax at 28% and has basic EPS of 70 cents. Basic EPS has already been calculated and the value is 70 cents. The basic EPS calculated, basic EPS value is 70 cents. Right. Now, as a result of this conversion, what will happen to our profit figure? Right? How we calculate earnings per share? Profit divided by number of shares. This is what we are using now. Profit over number of shares. So as a result of this conversion, if we converted this convertible loan stock into ordinary shares, what will happen to our profit figure? What is the impact of this to our profit? මේ convertible loan stock එක ordinary shares කළොතින් ඒකෙන් අපේ profit එකට වෙන බලපෑම මොකක්ද? What will happen to our profit? මොකද වෙන්නේ? මේක දැන් convertible loan stock එකක්. It is coming under non-current liability and we are paying a 10% interest for this convertible loan stock. If we convert these instruments to ordinary shares, what will happen? We may no more needed to pay this interest. අපි ඔය convertible loan stock එක ordinary share එකක් විදියට convert කරලා equity component වලට ගත්තොතින් මොකක් කරන්න ඕනේ නැත තව දුරටත්. ඔය 10% interest rate එක ගෙවන්න ඕනේ නැහැ. Right? 10% interest rate එක ගෙවන්න ඕනේ නැහැ කියලා කියන්නේ අපේ profit එක කීයකින් වැඩි වෙනවද? Profit එක කීයකින් වැඩි වෙනවද? 2 million වලින් වැඩි වෙනවා. Right? It will increase by 2 million. Why? We are no more paying any interest. Right? We are no more paying any interest. If it is converted, we can save this interest expense. Interest expense එක අඩු වෙනවා කියලා කියන්නේ මොකක්ද? එක පැත්තකින් අපේ profit එක වැඩි වෙනවා. කීයකින්ද? By 2 million. On the other hand, when our profit figures goes up, what we need to pay? We need to pay taxes. ඔය 2 million වලට එනම් අපි taxes කීයක් ගෙවන්න ඕනද? 2 million into 28%. 2 million into 28%. How much? 560,000. Right? එක පැත්තකින් interest ගෙවන්න ඕනේ නෑ. ඒ කියන්නේ 2 million වලින් අපේ profit එක වැඩි වෙනවා. But for the increased profit amount, we need to pay tax at 28%. That is 560,000. So this would be the net impact to our profit. That is 1.44 million rupees. So ඕක තමයි net impact එක. අපේ profit figure එකට වෙන. Right? What is the impact on number of shares? ඔය convertible loan stock එක convert වුණොතින් number of shares කීයකින් වැඩි වෙනවද? 1 share for every 10 rupee loan stock. We have 20 million loan stock. We issue 1 share per 10 rupee loan stock. Means how much shares? Our number of shares will go up by 2 million. Convertible loan stock එක convert කරොතින් අපේ මොකක් වෙනවද? Number of shares ගාන 2 million වලින් වැඩි වෙනවා. Profit figure එක 1.44 million වලින් වැඩි වෙනවා. So what is the figure we may have here? සුළු කරාට පස්සේ අපිට එන figure එක කීයද? සුළු කරාට පස්සේ කීයක් එනවද? 0.72. right? So if this is converted, this will be the impact to our earnings per share. Now compare this figure with the basic earnings per share value. Basic earnings per share value is 70 cents. So if we converted this potential ordinary share, the value is, the impact is what? 0.72, right? 0.72. Then what has happened? Basic make potential ordinary share එක නිසා අපේ basic EPS වැඩි වෙනවද අඩු වෙනවද? Okay, right? Now tell me, this one we identified as what? This is a potential ordinary share. Then we need to decide whether it is dilutive or whether it is anti-dilutive. For that, we need to compute the impact of it to our EPS value, right? Impact of the conversion to our EPS. So we found that we are getting this much of a EPS value as a result of the conversion, 0.72. Now tell me whether this potential ordinary share is a dilutive potential ordinary share or an anti-dilutive potential ordinary share. මේ potential ordinary share එක dilutive ද anti-dilutive ද? This has resulted in what? This has resulted in an increase in earnings per share. අපි මෙතන කතා කරේ, right? Increase in earnings per share. As a result of the conversions, we are experiencing an increase in earnings per share. Therefore, it is what then? Anti-dilutive. Therefore, here, this is what then? This is anti-dilutive, right? This is anti-dilutive. If it is anti-dilutive, we should not take it when we are calculating the diluted earnings per share, right? Diluted earnings per share calculate එහෙනම් මේක අපි consider කරන්න ඕනේ නැහැ. ඇයි? මේක anti-dilutive potential ordinary share එකක්. That is how we can decide whether it is dilutive or anti-dilutive. Okay. Right. So there is an example for you. Try this out. We need to calculate the diluted earnings per share. Here what it says. In 2017, Dias Products PLC had a basic earnings per share of 105 cents based on earnings of 105,000 and 100,000 ordinary shares. Earnings 105,000 and there were 100,000 ordinary shares. Therefore, our basic EPS value is 105 cents or 1.05 rupees. Basic EPS එක සත 105. ඒ figure එක අපි ඉතින් මෙතන දෙනවා earnings 1,50,000යි shares තිබ්බ ලක්ෂයක්. Then you can find this value 105 cents. It also had an issue 40 million 15% convertible loan stock. convertible loan stock is what? Is a potential ordinary share, right? It is a potential ordinary share. Now we need to decide what? Whether it is dilutive or whether it is anti-dilutive, which is convertible in 2 years' time at the rate of 4 ordinary shares for every 5 rupees stock, right? 4 ordinary shares for every 5 rupees stock. The applicable tax rate is 28%. So we need to calculate the diluted earnings per share, right? So I will have the figures here. Right. First of all, we need to determine whether this potential ordinary share is dilutive or anti-dilutive. How to decide? We need to compute the impact on EPS, right? What will happen to our profit figure and what is the impact on our number of shares? This one we need to determine. So what is the impact on profit? Profit එකට වෙන බලපෑම මොකක්ද? මේ convertible loan stock එක convert වුණොතින් අපි ගෙවන්න ඕන interest එක තවදුරටත් ගෙවන්න ඕනේ නැහැ. එතකොට අපේ profit එක මොකක් වෙනවද? expense එකක් නැති වෙනවා කියලා කියන්නේ profit එක මොකක් වෙනවද? profit එක වැඩි වෙනවා. කීයකින් වැඩි වෙනවද? 40,000 into 15%, that is 6,000, right? Our profit figure will go up by 6,000. But for the increased profit, but for this 6,000 profit, we need to pay tax. Tax at what percent? 28%. ඔය 6,000කින් interest එක ගෙවන්න නැති නිසා අපේ profit එක 6,000කින් වැඩි වෙනවා. හැබැයි මේ 6,000කින් වැඩි වෙන profit එකට අපි මොකක් ගෙවන්න ඕනද? 128 ගානේ tax එකක් ගෙවන්න ඕන. So what is the net impact then? 28% means what? 1,680. 1,680 divided by number of shares. Shares වලට වෙන impact එක මොකද්ද? 4 ordinary shares for every 5 rupees stock. 40,000 loan stock එකක් තියෙන්නේ convert කරද්දි මොකද්ද condition එක? So how we are going to issue shares? 4 ordinary shares for every 5 rupees stock. Every 5 rupee stock we issue 4 shares. Therefore, how many shares we are going to issue? 32,000. එහෙනම් මේ conversion එක වුණොතින් අලුතින් shares කීයක් එකතු වෙනවද? 32,000ක shares එකතු වෙනවා. So what is the net impact then? Net impact එක කීයද? 6,000 minus 1,680, that is the net impact on profit. That figure we need to divide by increase in shares, right? 32,000. So the answer here should be 0.135. Now, based on this answer, tell me whether it is dilutive or anti-dilutive. දැන් මට කියන්න මේක dilutive ද anti-dilutive ද? Basic earnings per share 105 cents. ඔක rupees වලින් කිව්වොතින් කොහමද? Rupees වලින් නම් 1.05 rupees. Now compare these two, our basic earnings per share value and right the impact of potential ordinary share on EPS. By comparing these two, tell me whether it is dilutive or anti-dilutive. මේ convertible loan stock 40,000 convertible loan stock එක, yes, it is a potential ordinary share. Now we need to determine whether it is dilutive or anti-dilutive. We have calculated the figure. What is the impact on our EPS? as a result of this conversion, right? This is the impact on the EPS 0.135. Now, based on this figure, tell me whether it is dilutive or anti-dilutive. Dilutive, the anti-dilutive. Shadid, dilutive, the anti-dilutive. The original basic earnings per share තියෙනවා 1.05 rupees. මේ conversion එකේ විතර conversion එකේ impact එක විතරක් බැලුවොත් 0.135. Dilutive ද anti-dilutive ද? Yes. Dilutive කියලා answer එකක් ලැබෙනවා අනිත් අය. What about others? Yes, this is dilutive, right? Dilutive. Hey, dilutive. අපේ basic EPS එකට වඩා දැන් ලැබිච්ච අගය මොකක් වෙලාද? Basic EPS එකට වඩා දැන් ලැබිච්ච අගය අඩුයි. අඩුයි නම් මොකද්ද? Dilutive. Dilutive නම් විතරයි. But here, if it is dilutive potential ordinary share only, we consider it in calculating the diluted earnings per share. මේ diluted earnings per share නෙවෙයි. මේක anti dilutive ද dilutive ද කියලා බලා ගන්න කරන calculation එක විතරයි. After make sure that it is dilutive, then we can calculate the diluted earnings per share value. Okay, so this potential ordinary share is dilutive, therefore we need to consider this given information in calculating diluted earnings per share. Right, so how to calculate? This is the formula that we need to use. Profits in basic EPS. Profits in basic EPS. What is the value? Profits in basic EPS 105,000. That is being given in the sum 105,000. This figure. Right. For that we need to adjust what? Effect on profit of dilutive potential ordinary shares. Because of this dilutive potential ordinary shares, what will happen to our profit figure? අපේ profit figure එකට වෙන impact එක කීයද? Right? අපේ profit figure එකට වෙන impact එක කීයද? This is the impact to our profit. What is the net impact? 4,320. Right? 4,320. That is the net impact. Yes, 4,320. Numerator is okay. Now we will move to the denominator part. New number of shares in basic EPS. Basic EPS එක calculate consider කරපු number of shares ගන්න කීයද? Here it is 100,000. Right? 100,000. We need to adjust what? Dilutive potential ordinary shares. Right? Dilutive potential ordinary shares. As a result of this conversion, our shares goes up by how many? 32,000. 32,000. Therefore, right, what should be the diluted earnings per share value? $109,320. We need to divide it by 132,000. මේ එන ආන්සර් එක අනිවාර්යයෙන් මොකක් වෙන්න ඕනද? 7,105ට වඩා අඩු ෆිගර් එකක් වෙන්න ඕන. 19320 over 0.82 rupees 0.82. එහෙම නැත්නම් මේ 7 වලින් නම් කීයද? 782යි. So this is the answer. This is the diluted earnings per share value. Now, මෙතනදී කැල්කුලේට් මෙතෙන්දි කැල්කරේ diluted earnings per share එකක් නෙවෙයි. අර මෙන්න මේ කියන potential ordinary share එක අපිට බලා ගන්න ඕන වුණා ඒක dilutive ද anti dilutive ද කියලා. ඇයි? dilutive නම් විතරයි අපි ඒකේ impact එක consider කරන්නේ when we are calculating the diluted earnings per share. If it is anti dilutive we do not consider. We do not go ahead. ඉතින් ඉස්සරහට අපි යන්නේ නැහැ. So we found it is dilutive, then only we consider the impact on our profit and number of shares and computed the diluted earnings per share. So diluted earnings per share value is 0.82. Yes, 0.82. Okay. So that is how we calculate the diluted earnings per share value. First thing we need to do here is we need to determine whether the given potential ordinary share is dilutive or anti-dilutive. If it is anti-dilutive, we do not have any adjustments. Anti-dilutive නම් අපේ basic earnings per share value එකත් ඒකමයි, diluted earnings per share value එකත් ඒකමයි. No difference. But if it is dilutive potential ordinary share, then we need to consider the impact on our profit and impact on our number of shares. Then separately compute the diluted earnings per share value. So always sorry, I have muted no. කොතනින්ද දැනෙන්නේ නැතුව ගියේ. Here disclosure requirements මෙතනදී අපි මොකද කරන්න ඕන? අපි numerator එකේ figure එක ගත්තේ කොහොමද? නැත්නම් net profit or loss attributable to ordinary shareholders කියන figure එක අපි ගත්තේ කොහොමද කියන එක අපි disclose කරන්න ඕන. In terms of basic earnings per share as well as in terms of diluted earnings per share with the reconciliation. And also how we arrive the denominator value. Right? Denominator එකේ තියෙන්නේ මොකද්ද? Weighted average number of ordinary shares. එතකොට ඒක ගත්තේ කොහොමද? With the reconciliation we need to disclose. Right? So this is the summary earnings per share We have discussed on basic earnings per share and diluted earnings per share as the two types of earnings per share, and how to compute also we have discussed, right? And the disclosure requirements. And then I was highlighting this one, right? LKAS 33. See for how many marks it has been tested in your past few years. In 2019, this has been tested for 10 marks. 2018 again for 10 marks. 2017 again for 9 marks, 6 marks, 8 marks. Therefore, you should know, right, how important this particular standard for you in your exams, right? So please do answer for these, right? මේ past paper questions වලට answer කරන්න answer කරලා ඔයාලගේ Padlet එකට Padlet link එක මම එවලා තියෙනවා Google Classroom එකේ. ඔය Padlet link එකට ඔයාලගේ answers upload කරන්න. ඒක upload කරද්දි බය වෙන්න එපා. Right? You may not able to give the 100% correct answer, but still you need to attempt, right? Then after you attempt, I can help. Okay. ඔයාලා ඉස්සෙල්ලා past paper questions වලට attempt කරන්න. Attempt කරාට පස්සේ then I will rediscuss those things. All attempt karnaka මම ඔයාලගේ past papers discuss කරන්නේ නැහැ, right? Simply that. Simply that is the message I needed to convey. Okay, so with that shall we stop? Any questions?